Now, I've read this question many times, and if I read it as there's a lot of unnecessary judgment that is going to be implanted in some of your brains out there that do not live in rural areas. And I grew up in a rural area, so I understand what she's saying, and I am not going to read it as she wrote it, as to avoid judgments from some of you guys that just didn't grow up in a rural area, and you didn't grow up in the South, and you didn't grow up with there's a cultural difference there. But I understand what she's saying. Your grandson, 13, high functioning autism. He's been getting a lot of trouble at school. He does not know how to always control his anger, which that I completely understand. He throws things, and the school's response is to call the dad. I'm paraphrasing. The dad comes and handles the disciplinary response. So that's the school's actions. Okay. He gets in trouble. They call dad. Dad comes down there and handles it in the way that dad believes is right. Dad also took your grandson to his attorney to see what was legal pertaining to the parameters of corporal punishment, and along with what would be considered hard labor. You believe that that's wrong, and you think the attorney should have not said any corporal punishment was okay. Well, it depends on your state. It's allowed in a lot of the southern states still. Now, it's diminishing with regards to the acceptance of corporal punishment inside of our schools. But Alabama, for example, still permits corporal punishment. And there's going to be a lot of people in the southern states, Texas included, that there's a lot of people that just believe that what's wrong with our society currently is that we're not spanking the hell out of kids and beating them as all of us were beaten. And I don't agree. I don't think that that's the problem in our society. I think that we're failing to look at the other factors, the loss of religion, which I believe is an influence, and I know some of you won't. And when I say loss of religion, I'm talking about traditional religions. I'm not talking about the religion of the state, the belief in government as God. And people who believe in government as God don't believe that they believe government is God. But I call them statists, people that believe that the government is somehow the all-be-all of the things that will provide for people, which is the equivalent of what people pray for and ask for with regards to God. It's just that, the government is a clever God in that it takes from other people to magically give to those who, pray to it and say, oh, give me this or this. It ends up taking from these people and magically turning it around and say, I answered your prayers. Now I'm being very broad, but that's the same thing. That's a danger. But quite frankly, guys, it's a violation of our separation of church and state. Because once again, atheism and the belief in statism is a religion in and of itself, and the Supreme Court already ruled that atheism is a religion. It's just that nobody's challenged the fact that that's the accepted religion now inside of our schools, and somehow that's okay. I don't. I believe that religion should be. There should be a clear separation, but I don't believe that the government has any right to be espousing its belief and its belief in its own dominance in to our children any more than I think Christianity or Judaism or Islam or anything else. Okay, but do I see that happening to where the government is pushing itself? And violating that separation of church and state? Absolutely. I see it all the time. And I see a lot of people that espouse that they are Christian believers pushing the state as the the golden calf, so to speak, the god that people should bow down to. So let's take that and this idea of corporal punishment, and this idea that somehow that's allowed. It is permitted, but I'm one of these people to where I don't agree with that, because I don't believe in examples of state-sanctioned violence as good examples for children. I think it feeds bullies. I think it feeds the idea and acceptability of state-sanctioned violence, which we've had riots throughout the country because of state-sanctioned violence over the last couple of years, in the form of George Floyd. I mean, I can sit there and go down the list, guys. I don't agree with state-sanctioned violence. Okay, I believe in innocent until proven guilty, and I believe I believe in fair treatment of people. You want to accuse them of crime, great. Don't kill them in the process. Don't kill them pre-due process. Okay, you're not Judge Dredd, and we don't sit there and need to be doing that kind of stuff. I know that everybody's freaked out that I have to protect myself, and I feared for my life or whatever. Then maybe that's the wrong profession for you. All right. So that's my position on that. Okay. I am just not a statist. I do not believe in state violence. I don't believe in sanctioning state violence. I am against state violence because I think that that's the example given to children. It creates and foments violence against citizens. The greatest example that people, in fact, the first exposure to government for our children is the government school. And so what example are they setting? So if they're setting the example that it's okay to hit other people, when it determines it's okay to hit other people, then don't be surprised when kids are hitting other kids, because you've set that example. You as a state. It's the same thing with parents. If the kids are watching you hit them, the kids are watching you hit others, then don't sit there and say that we live in a violent free, no. And look, I grew up in a household where parents, my parents absolutely believed in spanking. My parents were ass whipping machines. And I'm not saying I didn't deserve it, but I'm just saying that I would hope that I have learned and progressed as a human to the point where I can sit there and differentiate the way my parents were raised, and maybe there were alternatives. Because do I sit there and I think to myself, wow, I mean, if I didn't get my ass kicked, or spanked, I would have turned out differently. I don't think so. Because the core of who I am is still the same person. I just made mistakes as a kid. Doesn't necessarily mean that was the proper way to handle it. I love my parents. And like I said, I don't judge them for the times in the 70s and 80s. I don't. It's just the expectation on me as a parent. I just hold to a different standard because I know more. At least I hope that I've learned more. And I understand how, I have a responsibility to sit there and move the ball forward, so to speak. Progress more. Try to be enlightened more. And, so I can't tell you, I mean, my kids make mistakes, but are they any different than the mistakes I made? No, it's just we handle it differently. And I have good kids. So in this situation, long way around the answer. But I can tell you the big thing is that the school should not be calling the dad. The school, more than likely, is violating the state law of educating your child or educating your grandson for X number of days in their learning environment. And if they're removing the child from the learning environment in order to take them to the school, in order to call your son or your son-in-law over to handle the situation inside the school, then your grandson's been removed from their learning environment. Or if they're early releasing your son or grandson, or if you're they're suspending your grandson. Those are all removals from the learning environment. And in your state, there's going to be a state law that the schools have to educate the children for X number of days. That's why we have functional behavior assessments, is that they need to bring experts in to sit there and analyze why he's engaging in this behavior. And then as a result of that, create behavior intervention plans. And that behavior intervention plan is supposed to be incorporated and to where the staff is trained on how to manage that behavior and how to teach your grandson replacement skills. What can we teach him to replace whatever outbursts or whatever behavior he's having? That's part of the special education program. That's how we deal with it. We don't sit there and beat it out of him, so to speak. And we don't sit there and use the parent. That just is absolutely inappropriate. It's not supposed to happen like that. Your school has a legal responsibility to teach these skills in these deficit areas. And that includes with regards to these behaviors and autism. Now, what is the best professional field to deal with this? In my viewpoint, it's a board certified behavior analyst. And if you Google board certified behavior analyst, there's going to be some in your area. And in fact, if you go to the website bacb.org or .com, either one, then you can sit there and use their find a certificate. You'll see at the top, find a certificate, and you can sit there and scroll through, put in your address and zip code, and then put a mile circumference. And it will provide you the names and numbers of the people that are licensed and professionals in the area of behavior. And that's who should be working to sit there and help your grandson gain skills that are positive, that are conducive, that will keep him in a learning environment, avoid having the father called. He should not be called. They should not be doing that. They shouldn't be putting this pressure on him, which as an end result is forcing him to feel like he needs to go to an attorney to determine what to do and how far he can push the envelopes, because nobody is training him and nobody is helping him understand autism, and nobody is helping him understand the proper, conducive, and positive ways to help your grandson learn, grow, improve, reduce these behavior responses, because he has the skills that he's learned in his school program to negate these behaviors or these responses. Just hard labor and these kind of things are not going to do that. That's just going to damage him is what it's going to do. It's not going to help. And I'm not judging your son or your son-in-law. Okay? I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. Where I judge people is when they do know and they do the opposite. But I don't judge people that don't know. And it just seems like to me that he doesn't know, and he's trying to find out, and he's trying to know. But that's the school system's responsibility, not his. And so with your help, you can sit there and push the school system in the way that they need to and get the right people involved. And then by doing that, it helps your son or your son-in-law. And then it helps your grandson. Great question. Great question. Keep plugging away. I mean, you're doing the right thing.